Hey fellow wealth builders. So today I want to talk about having multiple types of bank accounts. I kind of want to go over some of the different types of bank accounts that we actually have, as well as some that can really benefit you in the long run to be able to actually manage your money just that much better. But make sure you also stick around because I'm going to go over some tips that can actually really help you out when having all of these accounts, so that way you do not get overwhelmed. But first, if you are new to this channel, my name is Dennis, and on this show we love talking about personal finance to really help you build wealth and become more financially free. Now, if that's something that interests you, make sure you have that subscribe button hit down below, as well as the bell to get notified when more videos like this come out. Now, having multiple different types of bank accounts can seem really overwhelming for people, and it might not be the best thing for every single person, but I feel like it can be a great way to actually manage your money that much better. Similarly to how we actually put everything away in different compartments in our lives, I think having multiple bank accounts can actually do the same thing. For example, if you go into your pantry, you typically have things organized in a way to make it easier for you to find the things that you want and make sure that you have exactly what you need. So if you have all your cereals in one area, all your pastas, all your condiments, all these different things, they are set up in different areas to make it easier for you to find what you need and to make sure you are fully stocked. So having multiple types of accounts is very similar, so you can actually see everything all in one picture and they're all put together where they belong. So what I mean by this is how you kind of have it all set up. Now, I'm gonna go over the type of bank accounts that I have first, as well as talking about some different types that you can have to be successful depending on your family situation and how everything is ran in your household. Now for us, we have quite a few different types of bank accounts. Now we do also have a business bank account for our businesses, but that's separate. And if you do have a business, I highly recommend making sure that you have that account completely separate from your personal stuff. It makes it a lot easier to have everything situated and, money coming in as well as money going out. Now, when it comes to our type of personal accounts, we actually have a multitude of savings accounts as well as 2 checking accounts. And I know sometimes people might think it's weird to have multiple checking accounts, but the benefit of having multiple accounts is the way we have things set up. So our first type of checking account is actually what I like to call our bill pay account. Now, I actually have this nicknamed as bill pay account, so that way it makes it a lot easier. So as the name suggests, the bill pay account actually has all of our regular monthly bills coming out from that one account. Now, it makes things a lot easier because of the way we actually set up our bills, so that way we actually know exactly what's coming out of that account. So every time we get paid, we make sure that there's enough in there until the next paycheck to have all of our bills covered, whether that be the phone bill, whether it be water, electricity. So everything that comes out on a regular basis is coming through that account. And so things are made so much more simpler for us because the money in that account is exactly what it's there for, and things will get pulled out when they need to based off of our time in between each paycheck. So that's one thing that we do that I feel can be so effective for a lot of people when it comes to being able to manage their money just that much more precisely, so that way they can have more control. So now the next checking account we have is actually going to be a regular checking account, and this is going to be where we actually have the debit cards available for us, and we utilize this money for things such as groceries, gas, entertainment, things that we want to personally utilize ourselves without the need to have to dip into our bill pay account. Now, this makes it a little bit easier again, because when we have these 2 types of checking accounts separated, it makes it for a much easier way to manage the overall budget. Now, in case you're wondering why having a bill pay account as a checking instead of a savings, there are federal laws saying that you cannot withdraw more than 6 times from a savings account, which is why we actually have our bill pay account as a checking account. So just kind of a bonus tip right there for you in case you're curious about that. Moving on to the savings accounts, we have a couple of different savings accounts, as we call them sinking funds. And with these sinking funds, we actually do also have them entirely named for what those goals are. Now, if you are new to this channel, you might not know this, but we actually do a monthly budget here on this channel where we kind of go over the budget and see everything that we have and how we plan for it. So if you have been part of this community, you do know some of these things when it comes to the budget. But of course, first and foremost is having an emergency fund savings account. Now, the reason this is important is because people need to make sure that they have money aside for something that is unforeseen. And it makes it a lot easier when you have it sitting in an account with the name written emergency fund. You're going to be one, less likely to want to utilize that money because you know what it's for. And two, when it's separated from all the other money that you have, it makes it better to understand, what that amount is there for, versus if you have just one savings account with your emergency fund and any other types of funds, it makes it harder to really gauge. Now, I do know sometimes people keep a spreadsheet of, their one savings account and, what all the money's in there for. But I personally see it more effective when I can actually see the exact dollar amount for that given category. So next up would be our car fund. Now the car fund is kind of twofold. One, it's in case any big car emergencies come up, we don't even have to dip into our personal emergency fund. But then two, it's to be able to upgrade our vehicle in the future to another car. And so it kind of plays in two ways, but again, that money's sitting in there strictly for vehicle stuff. So next one is going to be actually taxes. And as fun as taxes are for everybody, we actually have to make sure we set aside for property tax as well as for our income tax, because some of the things that we do don't get taxed right away. So we want to make sure that we have that money set aside to be able to pay for it as it comes due. We also have a gift fund to be able to have money set aside for weddings or birthdays, whatever the case may be, so we can utilize that money without having to dip into any other type of savings. And then my personal favorite one is our Christmas fund. This one is my favorite because when it comes to having this money set aside, it makes Christmas so much easier because we don't have to scramble around looking for money. We know exactly what we have and what we plan for, so nothing comes as a surprise around that time of the year. And then after the savings, we have two retirement accounts, one for each of us, of course, to make sure that we are prepared and ready for retirement. Mine is currently through Vanguard, and then my wife's, I'm actually rolling over into Vanguard here in the near future. So we have those planned and set for ourselves. And then we have a few different investing accounts, fairly small. One of them is with Robinhood, another one is with M1 Finance, and then a third one is actually with currently E-Trade as it got transferred over from another brokerage account. But all of those actually are kind of in the process of just, making sure that we are getting ready for the future and investing for ourselves. So you might be thinking, well, that's a lot of different accounts to keep up with. That's a lot of different, numbers to look into, logins, whatever the case may be. Now, the personal checking accounts and the personal savings accounts are actually all under one roof with Capital One, who I currently use to be able to manage all of those. And it's actually very easy to be able to see everything all in one place. And again, it makes it so much easier to manage and understand where that money is and what it's for, because I actually nickname every single account. And I just find that having these accounts separated makes it so much easier to, one, budget for properly, and then two, also like the fact that I can actually see these goals as we're trying to accomplish them and how we are progressing with each one individually and not as one whole unit, because I feel that with somebody that has just one savings account and has it all split up on a spreadsheet, that sometimes maybe that number can be skewed for one category or another. And I think that can hurt them in the long run when it comes to knowing where each dollar belongs. So what are some of the different types of bank accounts that you can have? Now, depending on your family, you might also be wanting things such as a child's account, maybe something where you're saving up for their future. You can also even do what they call an ESA, which is an educational savings account, so that way you can plan for your kids' future. And that's a really cool thing and something I plan on doing once we have kids, so that way we can have money ready for them for their education. Now, they do also have what they call an HSA, and a lot of employers offer this as well, which is a health savings account. So you can put money in tax-free and spend it and not have to worry about it, which is a really nice thing to be able to protect yourself just a little bit more when it comes to paying for your crazy health bill expenses. And then as far as like your savings accounts, you can also even come up with some really fun, clever types of savings accounts for yourself. So if you guys like to go on family trips or, traveling the world, you can have savings accounts, dedicated to that with nicknames such as, travel fund or, exploring fund. And that way you can kind of have money set aside and be excited for those things as you start building up more and more money in those accounts. And then a type of checking account that you can do for you and a spouse could be also having your own types of checking accounts where you transfer the money for your own fund money. So that way you don't have to kind of divulge all the information if you don't want to. makes it a little easier for, surprise gifts or just being able to do something on your own without having to have the other person kind of hounding you on where you're spending that money if it's coming from like an overall checking account versus having your own separate checking. Before we continue on, let me know in the comments down below, what are the kind of bank accounts that you have currently available, and are you utilizing them to their fullest extent, or is it something where you maybe have too many accounts opened up? I'd like to hear from you in the comments down below. If you are enjoying this video and getting some great value, make sure you hit that thumbs up button on this video. It really helps out spread this message out to more people and build up our community that much more. All right, so if you made it this far into the video, as I mentioned, we actually are gonna talk about some tips to be very effective when having multiple accounts. Now, we've done this for quite a while where we've had so many different accounts available for us to utilize in different ways. So these are gonna be some of the tips that I feel can help you manage so many accounts all at once and be as efficient as possible. So the first tip when it comes to having multiple accounts is making sure that you don't get charged some crazy amount of fees for having these accounts. Now for us, since we go with Capital One currently, we actually don't have to worry about additional fees when it comes to the checking accounts or even the savings accounts. So there's like no minimums, there's no amount that needs to come into the account every month. We don't have to worry about paying any type of service fee with those type of accounts, but just make sure with your bank if there's any fees for having a second account for checking or multiple savings accounts, because I know that can be the case. And you definitely don't want to be paying fees to have your money set aside in multiple accounts. Now, once you make sure that you don't have those fees, the next thing you want to do is make sure that you actually have a plan for each of these accounts. And what I mean by that is, of course, if you are saving up for Christmas, you already kind of know that plan. But if you are setting up for, going on a trip, have that trip somewhat planned out ahead. Make sure you kind of know where you want to go, because that will make things that much more exciting. And a really cool tip as well is making sure that you nickname these accounts. As I mentioned earlier, I actually nicknamed my bill pay account as Bill Pay to make it a lot easier to understand, what that account is for. So if the money gets, a little bit bigger because we have more expenses, I still understand why that money is there. Same thing with the savings account. Our Christmas fund is called Christmas fund because we know exactly what it's for. And then same thing with our emergency fund, our car fund, and so on as well. And then as I mentioned, when you plan ahead, also set your goal for the dollar amount that you want in those accounts. It makes things a lot easier to be able to hit those goals. And some accounts actually give you a percentage range for that goal you want to hit. So if you have $100 in your account and your goal is to hit 1,000, it'll actually show you that you're 10% to your goal, and that actually can help encourage you to keep going as you see your percentage increase every single time. And then the next thing that you can do when it comes to being effective with having these multiple accounts is making sure that you have things set up on auto draft if you possibly can. And this can be very helpful with the smaller accounts that maybe don't really need as much every single paycheck, but you can actually be effective with anywhere from $5, $10, $20, whatever the case may be that you can afford to move into there. Now this is really cool, especially for the Christmas time. If you have a plan to save, $600 towards Christmas, you can make sure that every single month you divide that up so you know how much goes into that account, and you can set that up as auto transfer, and it makes it a lot easier for you and you don't have to worry about it. And then my favorite thing when it comes to actually setting these accounts up and having this money grow for you, because it can sometimes seem daunting that one of your accounts might not be very large, such as maybe your gift fund or your travel fund might not be fully stocked just yet, is that every little bit counts that you transfer into that account. So for example, if you got a paycheck, sent the money that you needed for your bill pay account, sent money to other places that you needed, and you have some money left over, even something as small as $1, $5, $10 can really go a long way as it starts to build up. So don't think that little bit won't help. Every single time you move money into those accounts, it can really, really help you out. My personal favorite tip is having a high yield savings. Now this is gonna help you earn money on your money as you continue to save for your future. Now a lot of the traditional banks unfortunately have very low interest rates, so you're not gonna earn anything for them. So I will have a video for you to click right over here that will actually show you some of the great online banks that will actually earn you some really high interest.